I want you to just um, take a second and think about how you actually experience time.
Right. Not the clock on your wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not the rigid, mechanical ticking. I mean, how you literally feel it.
Because it's entirely subjective, isn't it?
It totally is. We walk around assuming time is this, like, fixed river that just carries us all at the exact same speed.
But your own lived experience tells a completely different story.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Have you ever been so insanely focused on a project, maybe, painting or coding something, that the whole world just warped?
Or writing, where it just pours out of you.
Right. The distractions just fade out completely.
Background noise goes silent.
And your own focus starts to feel um, almost heavy, like a physical weight.
And time just slows down to an absolute crawl.
Exactly. You've
Yeah.
felt that. We all have. Or, well, think about the opposite extreme.
Like a huge spike of emotion.
Yeah, like a car swerves into your lane on the highway.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
For those 3 seconds, your brain is capturing every single microscopic detail.
You see the tread on the tires?
You see the panicked look on the other driver's face.
Yeah.
You map out like a dozen escape routes.
And those 3 seconds stretch into what feels like an absolute eternity.
Right. And it's a completely universal human experience.
It is. We've all had those moments where seconds feel like hours.
Or where hours just vanish in minutes because
Yes.
we're distracted.
But we usually just chalk it up to a trick of the mind.
Yeah, we just brush it off. My brain is playing tricks on me.
We assume it's just biology. Adrenaline, dopamine, that kind of thing.
But what if it isn't an illusion at all?
What if it's literal?
Exactly. What if your attention, your focus, your emotions, what if they are actually exerting a physical force on reality?
That's the core question here.
Right. What if that feeling of time stretching isn't just perception, but a literal warping of the universe?
Caused by the sheer weight of your consciousness.
It's a huge idea. And today, we're going to explore a story that brilliantly collides that human psychology with quantum physics.
It's an incredible piece of writing.
It really is. We have this excerpt in front of us from a document simply titled The First Law.
And it follows a really fascinating cast of characters.
Right. We've got River, Max, Henry, Rubin, and this very mysterious guy named Mr. Cronos.
And they are literally unraveling the fabric of reality.
By discovering the physical laws of consciousness. So our mission for this deep dive is massive.
We're going to explore what it means to enter the gray zone.
We're going to decode the exact science behind quantum conscious time dilation.
Which sounds intimidating, but it's actually very grounded.
And we're going to discover why your everyday moments of déjà vu might be hard evidence that your attention is bending reality.
It really forces you to stop taking your own consciousness for granted.
By the end of this deep dive, you will look at your own focus completely differently.
So where does the text actually start?
Well, that's the thing. It does not start in some high-tech laboratory.
Right, no particle accelerators here.
No. It starts in a messy bedroom.
The tension is just incredibly thick right from the jump.
It is. So we have our protagonist, River. She's sitting on Max's bed, wrapped tightly in a blanket,
And she's completely distant.
staring at something no one else in the room can even see.
She is physically and mentally reeling from this place she calls the gray zone.
And her friends, Max and Henry, are just standing over her. You can feel their anxiety.
They are terrified for her.
It's such a beautifully constructed opening image.
Because of the contrast, right?
Exactly. You have the mind-shattering weight of the universe, and she's huddled under a cheap comforter.
She has literally touched the underlying code of reality.
And she's trying to process it in her friend's bedroom. It really grounds the science fiction in vulnerable human reality.
And Max, being Max, tries to break the silence.
With the most mundane question ever,
Right.
he looks at this woman who just touched the infinite, and he asks, "Did you kiss him?"
Talking about Felix, the physicist she met in the gray zone.
It's such a funny, jarring moment.
But it's also a deeply human defense mechanism.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, Max is confronted with impossible. The human brain hates the impossible.
It doesn't know what to do with it.
Right. So he immediately reaches for high school drama to bring the temperature down.
If they can talk about a boy, then the universe hasn't broken.
Exactly. He's trying to force the cosmic back into the familiar.
And River just snaps out of her trance. She glares at him, wiping her eyes, denying it.
She's trying so hard to hold it together.
She is. And then she admits something huge. She says she can't even remember what happened after Felix mentioned the first law of quantum consciousness.
Her voice completely falters there.
Yeah, she says, "I didn't even know there was more than one." Didn't even know there was one.
And then Henry, sweet Henry, tries to keep it light too.
He asks, did you think he was hot? Like hotter than me?
Which is just the breaking point.
It really is. River just bursts into tears and buries her face in the pillow.
It's so messy.
It is. And I keep wondering why the author starts there.
Right. Why start a dense physics story with a crying woman being teased by her friends?
Exactly. But it's deliberate, isn't it?
It's totally deliberate. In traditional hard sci-fi, emotion is the enemy of science.
Right, like Spock. Pure logic.
Emotion is seen as a contaminant. It clouds your judgment.
But in this universe, emotion isn't the opposite of science.
No, it's a critical variable in the physics they are trying to uncover.
That is so fascinating.
The author is telling you, right on page 1, that you cannot separate cold mechanics from messy human feelings.
River's tears aren't a distraction from the science.
They are the engine of it.
I love that framing. But I'm stuck in her memory loss.
The blanking out.
Yeah. She says she just blanked after he mentioned the lull. Is that just trauma?
Or is her brain actively protecting itself?
Exactly. It feels like she encountered a concept so massive that her psychological fuses just blew.
We actually see this in real documented psychology.
Really, like extreme cognitive overload.
Yes, but elevated to a cosmic scale here. When your foundational framework of reality is ripped away, the brain dissociates.
To protect the ego from complete collapse.
Right. River's weeping is the physical reaction of a mind trying to hold on to a reality that is suddenly way too big.
So the emotion is the only way her body can process the impossible data.
Exactly.
Well, it takes Max to finally cut through that emotion.
He stops the jokes.
He looks at her and asks the crucial question. What was the first law of quantum conscious time dilation?
And River sits up, she wipes her eyes, and she recites it.
And man, this sentence is dense.
It's a lot to process.
I want to read the exact quote from the text because it's the cornerstone of everything.
Go for it.
She says, emotional intensity and focused attention increase the cognitive mass of experience, stretching subjective time by stabilizing quantum coherence in the brain, while distraction or decoherence compresses it.
And Max and Henry just nod like they get it.
Which they totally don't.
Not at all.
I mean, hearing it for the first time, anyone would be lost.
It is highly technical, speculative physics.
But if we break it apart, it's actually brilliant.
There are 3 main components here. Let's dissect them.
Let's do it. The first concept she mentions is cognitive mass.
Right. Now, in traditional physics, mass belongs to objects. A rock has mass. A planet has mass.
It creates gravity,
Exactly. But the text proposes cognitive mass.
which isn't physical matter at all.
No. It defines it as the combination of high emotional intensity and deep focused attention.
So emotion plus focus equals mass.
Yes. When you care deeply about something, and you direct all your mental bandwidth toward it,
Your experience actually gains a measurable weight.
it gains mass in the realm of consciousness.
So if you only have one without the other, you don't get that weight.
Right, like intense focus with zero emotion.
Like doing a boring data entry job for 8 hours. Time drags, but it doesn't have that profound weight.
An extreme emotion with zero focus is just a panic attack.
Your mind is racing everywhere. No mass.
You need the laser-like direction of attention fueled by emotion.
Okay, so once you achieve that cognitive mass, what happens? What's the second part?
The second part is stabilizing quantum coherence.
Okay, this is where it gets really sci-fi.
Well, in real quantum mechanics, coherence is when particles are in a structured, predictable relationship.
Like a chorus singing perfectly together.
Exactly. But it's an incredibly delicate state. The slightest outside interference causes decoherence.
The chorus falls out of tune.
And the quantum system collapses into normal, everyday physics.
So the first law is saying that by holding that cognitive mass, your brain stabilizes that delicate quantum state.
Yes. It builds a shield around those neural pathways.
And that stabilization is what actually stretches subjective time.
It bends your experience so seconds feel longer.
Let's use an analogy here to make this clear for everyone listening.
I think we need one.
Imagine your brain's perception of time is a tightly pulled mattress.
Okay, a mattress.
And that cognitive mass, your focus and emotion, is like heavy bowling ball.
Right.
If you drop that heavy bowling ball right in the center of the mattress, it physically warps and stretches the fabric down into a deep well.
Just like Einstein's theory of relativity?
Exactly. A massive star bends space-time, creating gravity.
Time actually moves slower near a massive object.
So the author is taking astrophysics and applying it to the human mind.
Your consciousness is the mattress. The bowling ball is your focus.
And when it drops, time slows down because you're in that deep well of attention.
That is a perfect visualization. You are creating a gravitational well of attention.
Which brings us to the third component, distraction.
Or decoherence, as the law calls it.
Right. So if focus is the bowling ball, distraction is like taking a handful of glass marbles.
And just throwing them across the mattress.
Right. They're bouncing everywhere, rolling off the edges.
But they don't have enough individual mass to bend the fabric at all?
None. There's no unified weight.
So the fabric of your perception stays entirely flat.
And time just zooms by, compresses.
It's such a brilliant way to bridge abstract physics with lived reality.
It really is. She's literally describing the physics of modern attention.
Think about doom scrolling on your phone.
Oh, man. You are just swiping from a cat video to the news to a sneaker ad.
Your attention is totally fragmented.
And your emotions are shallow. A tiny spike of amusement, a tiny spike of dread.
Nothing sustained. You are scattering the marbles.
Decoherence. The quantum state of your brain collapses.
And you look up, and 3 hours have vanished.
Time compresses. But then, think about the car spinning on the ice.
Total absolute focus.
Pure survival emotion.
Yeah.
Massive cognitive mass.
You drop the bowling ball, you stabilize the quantum coherence.
And those 3 seconds feel like 10 minutes. Time stretches.
The text turns that psychological quirk into a literal, measurable, physical law.
The first law, it's incredible. But Henry points out the obvious next step.
Right. He says, if Felix called it the first law,
Then he must have written others down.
Max immediately goes on the defensive, of course.
He's so paranoid. He thinks someone didn't want River to remember the other laws.
He's constantly reminding us that they're in danger. This isn't just an academic debate.
The knowledge itself is a threat.
But then, River remembers a detail from the gray zone.
She clutches Henry's sleeve, panicking again.
She says Felix pulled up these screens or projections.
And she is sure there were 3 laws.
But then she throws in this total non sequitur.
Oh, yeah, she just mutters. But he was very handsome. Never seen anyone like him before.
Which is so funny. It gets a laugh out of Max and Henry.
It breaks the tension again. But it sets up their immediate goal.
They have the first law. How do they find the second?
Right. So they bundle up against the cold and go walking in the snowy streets.
Looking for the mysterious café where all this started.
But they can't find it. They give up and sit in a quiet park.
The snow is falling. The streetlights are buzzing.
And Max suddenly shows why he's actually useful to the team.
He applies pure deduction to quantum mechanics.
Henry is shivering and frustrated. He's like, where do we even start?
And Max says, let's work backwards.
Right. Max points out that Felix said consciousness can shape causality.
And Henry calls it crazy.
But Max corrects him. He says, no, that's physics. Even in quantum mechanics, the observer affects the result.
What if, in consciousness, it's the same?
That is a huge leap. Max is pulling from the double slit experiment, right?
Exactly. Which is still one of the most baffling things in real-world physics.
Can you explain that briefly, just conversationally? How does that work?
Sure. So if you shoot particles, like electrons, through a barrier with 2 slits.
Like shooting tiny bullets.
Right. You'd expect them to hit the wall behind the slits like solid bullets.
2 distinct lines of bullet holes.
But they don't. They act like a wave. They go through both slits at once.
And they interfere with each other, creating a wave pattern on the back wall.
Exactly. But here's the mind-bending part.
What happens if you try to watch them?
If physicists put a detector at the slits to see exactly which slit the electron goes through.
It stops acting like a wave.
Completely. It suddenly acts like a solid bullet again. The wave pattern vanishes.
The mere act of looking at it forces the universe to choose a definite state.
Yes. Before observation, it's a wave of probabilities. After observation, it's hard reality.
That is wild. The act of observation alters reality at the quantum level.
And that's not sci-fi. That is proven science.
So Max is taking that proven microscopic fact
and scaling it all the way up to human consciousness interacting with the macro world.
He's asking, if looking at an electron changes the electron, what happens when a human looks at causality itself?
And River realizes exactly what he means.
Her eyes go wide. She starts to say, then the second law must be something like...
And before she can even finish the sentence,
the world literally glitches.
The environment undergoes this incredibly surreal transition.
It's not like a movie cut. The text says it's a dissolve.
A physical melting of reality.
The park, the snow, the streetlights, they begin to dissolve like paint melting off a canvas.
The colors run together.
And suddenly, they aren't freezing on a park bench.
They are sitting at a table back in the cafe.
The cozy cafe they were looking for earlier. They literally thought their way into a different location.
By conceptualizing the second law, they manifested it in real time.
Their collective focus, Max's deduction, River's realization, created a massive spike in cognitive mass.
Directed right at the problem of causality.
And it warped causality to bring them where they needed to be.
The universe responded to their observation by collapsing the probability wave into the café.
Max is just bewildered, but he gives it a nod.
Henry's enchanted. He wants to open a weird science coffee shop.
But their moment of peace is interrupted by a voice from the booth behind them.
Saying, I think you should.
Enter Rubin.
Right. Rubin arrives with his cane and his hat.
Like he's been waiting for them all evening, Max is immediately angry.
He wants to know where Rubin was when River was trapped.
But River isn't mad. She leans in with absolute urgency. She tells Rubin, I stepped into the gray zone.
She needs him to grasp the magnitude of it.
But Rubin just smiles. He expected it.
And he asks her the critical question. How did it feel?
And River's description here is so vital, she struggles to explain it.
She says the memories were sensations too vast to explain.
She says, it felt like time wasn't something I moved through. It was something I could shape.
Like walking in a place between seconds.
A space where causality hadn't decided what to become yet.
That is just poetic, terrifying quantum superposition.
Superposition being where all possibilities exist at once, right?
Yes. Like Schrodinger's cat, both
Yeah.
alive and dead until you open the box.
So River was basically backstage in the universe.
She walked among the uncollapsed probability waves.
Before the universe opened the box.
Exactly.
But then she says something that gave me chills.
Oh, about being watched.
Yes. She whispers, and it was beautiful, but terrifying. Because for a moment, I saw something watching back.
Which is terrifying.
How does that even work? If the gray zone is just uncollapsed probability doesn't have eyes.
Math doesn't stare at you.
Right. So how can a state of physics watch you back?
Rubin's face darkens when she says this.
He drops the mentor persona entirely.
He tells her they need the second law before it finds her again.
Which introduces the real stakes of the story.
Rubin introduces the concept of the simulator.
He says, her seeing the gray zone wasn't just luck. The simulator's predictive algorithms work because most observers follow expected patterns.
They don't question, they don't notice.
But when someone steps out, it creates ripples.
The word simulator changes everything here.
It turns it into a thriller. What does it imply about their reality?
It suggests reality is managed. It's smoothed over by an algorithmic system that craves stability.
It just wants people to follow expected patterns. Wake up, go to work, scroll on your phone, sleep.
As long as you're distracted, you lack cognitive mass, you're predictable.
You're just a marble rolling where gravity tells you to.
But River generated enough mass to step outside the pattern.
She forced her way into the gray zone and became a statistical anomaly.
A ripple. And predictive algorithms track anomalies to eradicate them.
So the thing watching back isn't a monster.
It's the universe's IT department noticing a virus.
Oh, man. That is so creepy. So they need hard mathematical evidence of these ripples before the simulator erases them.
Right. And River asks, how do we gather evidence for something the simulator tries to hide?
And Rubin has the answer right in his pocket.
He pulls out Felix's old letter-bound notebook.
He says Felix was designing experiments to prove the second law years ago.
He called it causality deviation tracking.
Which shifts the story from philosophy to rigorous science.
Felix was actually building machinery to measure this stuff.
The pages are full of dense diagrams. Rubin explains the two specific pieces of real-world tech Felix used.
Which is great, because it grounds the magic again.
Right. The first machine was an EEG.
Electroencephalograms, standard medical tech.
Tracking brain waves. Alpha, beta, gamma.
Exactly. Deep focus correlates with strong gamma waves. Felix used EEGs to know exactly when a subject hit peak focus.
So he had a quantifiable baseline for cognitive mass. No guessing.
And once the EEG confirmed the mass, he checked the second machine, QRNGs.
Quantum random number generators. Max knows what these are immediately.
He says, like the ones that produce real randomness using quantum effects.
Which is an important distinction, isn't it? Most randomness isn't real.
Right. The random number generator on your laptop is pseudo-random. It uses an algorithm.
So it's technically predictable if you know the math.
Exactly. But a QRNG measures fundamental unpredictability, like a radioactive isotope decaying.
It is the gold standard of true randomness.
So Felix hypothesized that if a focused observer, someone with massive cognitive mass, sat near a QRNG,
Their consciousness would act like a magnet,
it would bleed into the gray zone and warp the causality.
forcing the machine to output non-random results.
Suddenly it spits out 60% zeros instead of a 50-50 split.
The observer's attention bends the probability curve.
Think of it like hunting an invisible ghost.
Right, you can't photograph the ghost of human consciousness.
But you can put a digital thermometer in the room.
And when the ghost walks by, the temperature drops 3 degrees.
You capture the measurable footprint of the anomaly.
The deviation in the QRNG data is the drop in temperature. It proves the attention-altered reality.
And that data point is the foundation of the second law.
Rubin reads it right from the notebook.
Conscious attention, when combined with emotional intensity, can alter causality within the limits of cognitive decoherence.
It's a staggering concept. The first law says attention stretches time inwardly.
The second law says it alters causality outwardly.
As long as you don't lose focus. As long as you don't hit decoherence.
It gives humanity godlike agency.
But Max points out the logistical flaw.
He's always the grounding rod.
He sighs and says, right? Easy. Except that's quantum level stuff. I wish we had an Ant-Man to shrink down and poke at particles.
They're sitting in a coffee shop. They don't have EEGs or QRNGs.
It sounds impossible. But they're about to learn they don't need a microscope.
The macro world is about to put on a demonstration.
The climax of the scene is incredible. Just as they're laughing about Ant-Man, the front door swings open.
The bell chimes.
And Mr. Cronos steps inside, framed against the falling snow.
And reality just physically stutters.
The author uses such vivid sensory details here.
We experience the causality deviation in real time.
First, the old wall clock gives a sharp, unnatural tick, and then it freezes.
The second hand is just vibrating in place.
Max frowns and says, that's not supposed to happen.
And Cronos ignores them, walks over to the gramophone, and puts on a Frank Sinatra record.
Sinatra is singing Fly Me to the Moon.
And Cronos turns to them and says, you won't need to shrink down. You've already been interacting with causality ripples.
He forces them to look away from the notebook and look at their actual environment.
And when River actually looks, the anomalies are everywhere.
A couple sitting by the window is suddenly just gone, erased.
But their coffee cups are still steaming on the table.
The flickering bulb above the counter stops mid-flicker.
And outside, the falling snow is completely motionless in midair.
Max asks when this happened, and Cronos says, the moment I stepped in.
Henry thinks Cronos froze time with a superpower.
But Cronos corrects him. Not frozen. You're witnessing a ripple. Small. Harmless.
And then he reveals something that shifts their whole understanding.
He says, sometimes ripples happen because of choices. Other times, because of observers.
He looks right at River and tells her that her attention, her emotional mass, is bending reality.
The ripples in the café are being generated by them.
Cronos points to the gramophone. The record is spinning perfectly, but Sinatra's voice is stuck.
Fly me too, fly me too, fly me too. Over and over.
Max says, this is all wrong, and Cronos delivers the hammer blow.
He says, no, Max, this is evidence.
It's terrifying.
It really is, because think about the implications. Cronos is saying they created ripples just by choosing to pursue the theory.
By focusing their combined mass on the notebook.
So the scientific method itself is dangerous here.
It's a recursive paradox. By systematically observing causality, they generate the mass that breaks it.
The act of looking for the glitch creates the glitch.
They can never be objective observers.
And Henry realizes what this means for everyday life.
He whispers, so, all those deja vu moments, weird coincidences, people disappearing when we turn back to look?
And Cronos gives the defining quote of the chapter.
Not glitches, ripples.
Not glitches, ripples. I want you listening right now to really think about that.
We've all had those intense deja vu moments.
Where you are absolutely certain you've lived this exact moment before.
Or you think of a friend you haven't seen in 10 years, and your phone rings, and it's them.
We call those glitches in our brain, or synchronicity.
But the text says no, those are ripples.
That is the timeline violently restabilizing because someone nearby exerted massive cognitive mass.
You're catching the shockwave of reality snapping back into place.
It puts the dread of quantum physics right into your living room.
Every coincidence is a collision of consciousness.
Which leads perfectly into River's massive epiphany.
Right. She looks at the frozen clock, the steaming coffee, the repeating song.
And the text says everything just clicks into place for her.
She realizes their whole fear of the simulator was flawed.
They don't need to build a quantum machine to prove the second law.
They don't need Ant-Man.
She tells her friends, we don't have to create a ripple from scratch. We just have to recognize when they're already happening. Document them. Measure the probabilities.
It's such an empowering shift.
They go from being terrified targets hiding from the simulator
To being active scientists hunting it.
the evidence they need has been surrounding them their whole lives.
The simulator is sloppy. Every deja vu is a data point.
They just need to become the ultimate observers.
Yeah.
Weaponize their own attention.
And this connects so deeply to how we interact with our own world.
It really does. The text suggests reality is fluid and responsive.
But we constantly dismiss our own profound experiences.
We have a weird coincidence. We say, huh, that was weird, and go right back to scrolling.
We return to our fragmented, distracted state.
By doing that, we play right into the expected patterns.
We act exactly how the algorithmic systems of our modern world want us to act.
We surrender our cognitive mass because it's easier than focusing.
River's realization is a radical call to be present.
To trust that your observation actually matters.
It's a total rejection of the algorithmic life,
And the excerpt ends right there, at the birth of their new scientific method.
leaving us to reflect on all of this.
So let's briefly recap this wild journey. We started with the messy, emotional trauma of River returning from the gray zone.
Showing us that emotion is the literal key to this universe.
We decoded the first law, learning that focus and emotion create cognitive mass,
Which drops a bowling ball on the mattress of reality, stretching time.
while distraction scatters the marbles and compresses it.
Then we learned about the simulator tracking anomalies.
We dug into Felix's notebook, using EEGs and QRNGs to track the footprint of consciousness,
And we watched reality freeze in a cafe under the weight of their curiosity.
leading to the realization that déjà vu isn't a brain glitch. It's a ripple.
It demands that we look at our focus as a physical force to be wielded.
Which brings me to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with today.
What should they be mulling over?
If distraction and decoherence keep the simulator's expected patterns running smoothly,
Right.
then think about your everyday life. Every time you endlessly scroll or multitask across 3 screens,
Never letting yourself feel deep emotional intensity.
are you just complying with a predictive algorithm? Are you willfully keeping your cognitive mass at 0 so you never cause a ripple?
What might happen if you actually dared to focus completely today?
Exactly. What physical ripples might you uncover in your own reality? Next time you get so focused that time slows down, I want you to look around,
Look at the clock. Look at the people.
because you might find you just dropped the bowling ball and reality is bending around you.